So with the forgiveness, I really do see that um, carrying the not forgiving around in the end hurts me and not the person I'm upset or angry with. I really do get that. And I also, it resonated when you said you can forgive a person and it does not mean they have to be your best friend and you don't have to interact with them after that. But
Mm.
often you are hurt uh, by something that someone very close to you has done or a colleague you have to work with. And I think with this course, I'm beginning to understand that I'm not the only one telling stories to myself. So I understand if somebody has done something that I think unacceptable and I'm carrying that around, I need to forgive and I don't have to interact with that person. But sometimes you're in situations where you can't say, I'm not going to interact with that person.
Yeah.
It could be because it's somebody you work with and you don't have that choice. Or it could be this is a person who's really close to you and you don't want to walk away from them. You want to have an interaction with them. And
Yeah.
I'm struggling a little bit then how exactly I mean, I think I understand better. I understand if this was someone who I felt was not caring for me at all, maybe you have to walk away, even if it's someone very close. But
Mhm.
I understand not everybody is hurting you or doing something from that position.
Yeah.
How do you, I'm not sure, I'm not even able to articulate my question very well, but I'm struggling a bit with how do I forgive? I understand why I need to, I want to, but when I still have to deal with this person who maybe doesn't even want forgiveness or isn't asking forgiveness.
Right. Right. I feel the complexity of the question because there's multiple parts. And are you dealing with something that is a specific person, or just the forgiveness process in general, and the complexity of people you work with and family?
I
And
am thinking right now of a specific thing.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about somebody. Okay, our feelings have been hurt. We've been hurt, and it's something they legitimately said. It's not just our characters making things up, because that's part of the equation. Uh, and then there's this forgiveness. We're like, okay, we want to let our go stories. We want to let this poison, because we're holding on to poison, and we want to let the poison go. But part of that poison is anger. Part of that poison is resentment, and part of that poison is an emotional, like, I'm going to push this person away attitude. I don't want to listen to what they say. I'm going to avoid them. I'm going to withdraw. It shows up in those different ways, and then you've got the thoughts that go with that attitude. Oh, that are dismissive. Oh, they think they're a know-it-all, or I can't trust them, or they're really stupid. Our mind starts to look for a way to one up them. Where we feel hurt, our mind then compensates, and now with criticism of, oh, they think they know it all. Any way to criticize, to kind of put them down, even if we're just telling it in our own head. It's judgments that
Yeah.
are toxic to ourselves. So that's the kind of stuff we want to let go of, that our judge is kind of having this ongoing conversation in our own head. Defense mechanism that's actually just hurting ourselves, because that doesn't feel good. Uh, and we and the tendency to not forgive, to not let this go, is, well, if I let this push away this energy that's pushing this person away, go, then they'll be closer. And now I lose this protective boundary of a narrative, this protective boundary of an attitude, a protective boundary that's dismissing whatever they say, because I don't want to let anything they say in, because I don't want to feel that toxicity anymore. So there's an energetic, emotional component. There's a narrative in our head. There's a lot of things going on here. But this is a person we're going to interact with. What we do want and why there's this protective attitude of resentment or anger or criticism from the judge about them. That's all kind of this protective attitude because we don't want to be hurt again. Our emotional body does not want to let in any harmful comments, any harmful words, any harmful emotion. We don't want their shaming, we don't want their anger, we don't want their guilting, anything that their judge would say. We don't want to let that in and absorb that with kind of by believing it. And so now is like, okay, there's this hesitation to let this protective stuff go. So here's the other way that we get protection. If they know they've hurt our feelings, say it's a family member, or it's somebody you're close to at work, you're like, they know they've said something harmful, they have remorse, they go, wow, I think I was out of bounds there, I said something harmful, I'm sorry. My characters got away from me, and my poison came out to you, and that probably hurt, and I'm sorry, I don't want that. What that is, when we have somebody in our life that signals they've given us their poison, when they have remorse and they acknowledge it, we can kind of go, oh, they will be on the lookout for that poison and not and being on guard so they don't send it, and so now we can let this guard down. Okay, they are back on our side. They're remorseful about us being hurt. Okay, now they see what they've inflicted over here emotionally. It's an opportunity for them to be a part of this healing of this emotion and poison, and takes the poison out and lets go of the protective layers around it, the anger, resentment, judgment, fear, and go, now they are back on my side. I can trust them. They're not going to throw that poison in again because they've obviously regretted doing it. Okay, so that's another place where it's like, okay, thank you, I forgive you. It's like, it's easy to do, and then we can let down our protective layers. The challenge comes in is, what if this other person doesn't realize what they said? Doesn't realize it was harmful, hurtful, disrespectful, critical, and doesn't know that we've been hurt by it. Now they are still in our unconscious emotional body. We want to protect ourselves. We're perceiving them unconsciously, energetically, as a threat that could hurt us emotionally with a criticism or whatever, harsh words, anger, whatever it is. So they haven't realized their power and their poison and what they're doing with it. And so we're still on guard. And so it's this unknown, what do we do? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I think sometimes the struggle, though, is maybe when you disagree on whether you've been hurt or not. But you feel you've been hurt, and you know this person would say sorry if they felt they had hurt you, but maybe they feel you're making a big deal out of something that they don't consider is a big deal.
Yeah. And this goes to a point, and I tried to cover it in that class of like, just that doesn't hurt. It's like somebody tapping my finger. That doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt. And I'm not hurt by it. It doesn't bother me. In an hour, that'd be sore. In a day, that'd be excruciatingly painful, probably, and bruised. Just a little tapping, doesn't hurt. But over time, You know, the amount of pain we would feel over something little can be huge. But maybe this wasn't wounded by them. If I walk into a relationship and I've been hurt and abandoned in, you know, whatever in childhood and past relationships and cheated on, it's like, and now somebody's like, you know, I can't stand you, I should just leave. And, you know, and they're just kind of offhand, top of the head kind of comment. And I'm going, what? You're gonna leave? Like I'm reacting, I have this big wound from the past. Okay. And they're like, well, I wasn't really gonna leave. I just like, and so to them, it's a nothing comment, but to the way my emotional body is wired to experience is something huge. So you could say,
That is helpful. Yes.
right? So in this way, I have a huge pain over something they didn't mean. Okay. But I can't control it because my emotional body is, it's going to feel that. It's programmed for that big emotional response over a small comment because it's only a small comment, but it's hitting a big wound. So yes, they're saying something that's small, but it's touching this really sensitive wound. It's built up from whatever in the past, repetition or previous things in life. Okay. So, you know, so now we're like, was it them or was it me? It was like, okay, it's some both. Yes, the thing you said, it's a small thing and you meant it in a small way. And over here, I couldn't help, you know, dismiss it and think of it as small because my emotional body is really sensitive to that comment. And it goes like this, big radiating pain when you said that. So there's the question of like, who's responsible? And it's not either or, it's like, does this person know that this is sensitive and painful? Now, they don't want to take the blame. They don't want to be their fault. They don't, because it's not. And so there's partly truth there. So, you know, to have that conversation, you need to like thin slice it a little more. It's like, wow, you know what? The thing you did say was small. The thing it is, like, I know you didn't mean it. And the impact it has on me is still big. Okay. And so it's a finer tuned conversation. And if they can hear, this is how my belief system, my emotional body reacts to that comment. Phrasing it that way, it's like, it's me that feels this impact. If you can take the responsibility, if you realize the wound is your creation and your history, and that you know, it's like, okay, this is what I'm doing inside my own emotional body with my beliefs and my emotions. If you can take ownership and responsibility, then they don't have to take responsibility for your pain, and they'll be more willing to take responsibility for the impact of triggering your pain. Okay.
Okay.
So
that kind of even answers my next question, because I was going to ask, how do you start a conversation? But that's a good place to start from.
Yeah. So look at this as two parts. Here's my pain. Here's a wound that can be activated. Here's what triggers that activation. And this way, you're like, you're not responsible for my pain. You're not responsible for my hurt about this. Okay? And I want you to know these are the things that trigger it.
Okay. Thanks, Gary.
And so, yeah, and now there, you know, because if you say, here's my pain, here's my hurt, and you caused it, like instinctively they know it's like, well, that's not true, and that's like poison on them, blame on them, judgment on them, and they don't want to feel that poison responsibility, because then that's guilt and shame, that's pain on them. So it's like, break apart, what's the trigger and what's the source of the wound? And the conversation starts with, in my experience, take as much responsibility as possible for your own emotions. Start the conversation in the direction of the conversation. This is my half. This is what's going on inside of me. And help them understand you better.
Okay.
And if they understand you better, they're like, that hurts that much. Why? And it's like, this takes a little time. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. Okay. Or I think it's related to this and this. That's what I'm trying to figure it out. And they're like, and while I'm figuring it out, would you do me this favor and avoid these triggers when you can? So that's building trust, and like, okay, let's not do that.